Okay, Mr. Blagojević, thank you for talking to Newsmax Balkans. Thank you for taking your time to do this interview, and thank you for being in Republika Srpska, and welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real pleasure. It's been really, actually, a great honor for me to be here, especially during the Christmas season. I had a chance to celebrate Badnjak Veče here on a beautiful evening.
Aside from Christmas, you came here also for the Republika Srpska's Day, January 9th. We're marking our holiday. This is very important to people in Republika Srpska. How do you see that, and what's the message that we would like to send people in Republika Srpska and in Bosnia too during the holidays, New Year's Eve and the Republic Day and Christmas? What are your wishes for the people here, and especially in terms of peace, which would probably be the biggest and the best and most important wish that anybody can wish for people elsewhere, anywhere?
Yes. Well, I came here, not really for Serbian Christmas or Badnjak Veče, but I came for Republika Srpska Day, the celebration of Republic of Srpska on January the 9th. That's the reason I'm here. And this is for the Serbian people in Srpska, and in Bosnia, it is to you what the 4th of July is to me in America. And I would not only understand, but I greatly appreciate President Dodik's leadership on this issue. And I know he has suffered and had to endure a lot because he took the stand to protect the rights of the Serbian people. And so my wishes and my hopes for the Serbian people here in Srpska and all throughout the Balkans and of course in the diaspora in the United States and anywhere else is only good things. And one of the most fundamental rights of people, God-given, is the right to govern themselves and to decide who should be their leaders. And the people of Srpska have elected President Dodik several times, and there's something very illegitimate and wrong and even wicked to think that there's some high representative bureaucrat from Germany who can inject himself into this process and steal from the Serbian people their right, not only to choose their own leaders, but their right to be able to celebrate their freedom and autonomous status. I would call it independence. And it would be as if somebody were to come to America and tell us we can't celebrate the 4th of July. So I have the highest regard for President Dodik, and I think that people of Srpska recognize how lucky you are to have a leader like him who has the strength to stand up to those tyrannical bureaucrats like Christian Schmidt and others in the European Union, and to actually suffer and sacrifice for the Serbian people. Because I know politicians. I've been in politics for a pretty long time in America. I've known 5 American presidents. Bob and I came up together in Chicago back in the 1990s. I've known him for a long time. I've been grateful to know President Trump, who's been very good to me personally. But it's very rare for a leader, particularly a president, to sacrifice himself as President Dodik has and to voluntarily step aside for a while so that things can be better for the people here in Srpska, like the lifting of sanctions and the promise of a lot of potential good things to come from the United States in the days, weeks, and months ahead.
Lifting the sanctions and presidential elections in Republika Srpska were probably the two events that marked the 2025 year. How do you see, for example, first, how do you see that more than a month after the elections, we still don't have the results for the elections? Ana Trišić-Babić, who you mentioned, is still acting president of Republika Srpska. We're waiting for the results. We have follow-up concerning that. How do you see that we still don't have the results on one hand? And on the other hand, when it comes to sanctions, do you expect that in a way, international relations of Republika Srpska will be much better and much more active now when the sanctions are lifted?
Well, I'm very optimistic about the future, but if I could just briefly talk about President Trišić-Babić. The other day she was working real hard preparing Sarma and her speech that she's going to give on Republika Srpska Day. And her loyalty to President Dodik is very commendable. Politics is a rough business, and there's not enough loyalty in politics. And so I know that President Dodik appreciates President Trišić for her loyalty, her dedication, and for the fact that she's not only working on her speech, but that she took care of her family and prepared her sarma. With regard to days ahead and moving ahead in relations with the United States and the promises of a brighter future, I think the lifting of the sanctions was only the beginning of great things to come. The sanctions were imposed on President Dodik by Biden and the Biden administration. It's very likely those sanctions were illegitimate because Biden may not have been the one who signed them. They could have been done by AutoPen, which is a scandal now in the United States. President Biden didn't seem to be as awake as he should have been as the president of our country, and a lot of people were doing things without him even knowing. Whether he did those sanctions or whether someone did that through an AutoPen, those sanctions were illegitimate and they were wrong. And the use of sanctions by the previous administration, by President Biden and before him by President Obama, have been abused. And they've been targeted against great, strong leaders like Dodik, who stands up not only for the Serbian people, but for the Christian faith. We have a new president in America, President Trump, as everybody knows, and he's very different from Biden and Obama. And I can honestly say, so when he knows the issues and he's aware of the dynamics that are taking place in other parts of the world, you can almost bet that if Biden was for something, President Trump will be against it. And if Biden was against something, President Trump will be for it. But far more important than that, President Trump shares the same kind of vision and has the same values as President Dodik. And that is the recognition and the importance of protecting the rights of people to worship freely, particularly those of the Christian faith who, under previous American administrations, Biden and Obama, those administrations were hostile to the Christian faith.
How do you see the role of Mr. Milorad Dodik in terms of lifting sanctions? Is it realistic to expect Mr. Dodik in Washington this year? How are things going on in there? What would be his role personally and politically, of course, in terms of the new circumstances following the lifting of sanctions?
Well, I think he's done a great job, President Dodik, in withstanding the persecution that's come his way from Christian Schmidt and from the globalists and European Union bureaucrats who are trying to impose on the Serbian people a way of life that the Serbian people don't want, that they're rejecting. And so in that respect, I think it's very important for President Dodik to do as much as he can now that the sanctions have been lifted, to come to the United States and help spread the word. The biggest challenge that the Serbian people here in Srpska are facing in America is the fact that, Donald Trump and President Trump is probably the most busy man in the whole world, and it's a big world out there. And, you just recently had Zelensky was at Mar-a-Lago, and Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, was in Mar-a-Lago, and now we've had the action in Venezuela where President Trump was very strong in doing what he did, which was basically to arrest a narco-terrorist drug dealer who masqueraded as a president. So it's important for President Dodik and for those of us who care about Srpska like me, who's Serbian, whose grandparents, whose bub and dad, they came from Gatsko-Herzegovina, to spread the word and let the American people know what's been happening here, not just over the past couple of years, but for the past couple of decades, and how mistreated the Serbs have been in Srpska, in Serbia, in Montenegro, in the Balkans. So if President Dodik comes to America, I think he's going to be a tremendous ambassador for the cause that matters to Americans. And once the American people and the leadership in the United States have a better understanding of what's been happening here and how mistreated the Serbs have been by the international community, by the left-wing globalists in the European Union, by previous American administrations, Biden and Obama and Bill Clinton in the 1990s, the more the American people realize the sides they've chosen against the Serbian people, I think the more American policy will change to the benefit of the Serbian people here. And I think with President Dodik coming to the United States, that would be a substantial step towards achieving that goal.
Are the more direct contacts between the Republika Srpska and the United States are possible now when we don't have the administrative restrictions, so to say, in terms of contacts with other officials in the United States? And is that something that our things are going to be developed in this way?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You know, one of the things that's happening now in the United States is that President Trump has so much that he's doing. And among the things he's doing within our country is he's basically reorganizing the governing institutions in the United States, whether it's in the State Department, whether it's in the Treasury Department, Commerce Department. And what he's doing is he's basically putting his people in and moving those who were there, Biden and Obama's people, out. Those people have been hostile to the Serbs. Trump's people are going to be friendly and sympathetic to the plight of the Serbian Christian minority here in the larger Bosnia, and are very much in support of the freedom and the right of self-determination and autonomy for the Serbian people. So, to answer your question, it doesn't happen overnight. But if you think back to where you were, let's say a year ago at this time, and where you are today, nobody in America thought it was possible to get those sanctions removed so fast. They're not easy to be removed, especially when they come from a president.
It's easy to get them in act, but to lift them, it's more challenging.
They're more challenging. And among the ways we were able to get those sanctions removed is we didn't go to the usual people that were there from Biden. We went around them and went to President Trump's people. And once President Trump realizes that some things are just not right, he's not afraid to act. That's one of his great qualities, that he's willing to take a stand, he's willing to act. And I have to say again, President Dodik is the same way. And that's my hope and dream, is that the two of them can get to know one another, because I think they would both appreciate each other.
When you say that President Trump is changing the administration from bottom to top, probably, what can we expect in Bosnia and Herzegovina in terms of the embassy and people who are here in official capacity of representing the United States in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Well, I think you can expect a dramatic change. The only challenge is not quite sure when that'll happen, just because there's so many other issues that are taking place in the United States. The biggest challenge for the Serbian people here in Srpska, with regard to your agenda in America and with regard to the policies of the Trump administration and American policy, is relative to the challenges that a president has in the United States. Srpska is a small part of the world, and it's just not, it just isn't the top of the list for American presidents to address and to deal with. The fact that we were able to get the sanctions lifted was because we went around some of that bureaucratic, institutional lethargy. And that's why, again, I think if President Dodik can come to the United States, that would be a big deal. So I think that the more the American people are aware of the circumstances here, I think that the future holds great promise. And I would say this in terms of what I would like to see happen. And again, you know, I'm an American, I was American born, and, you know, ja govorim srpski, ali slabo, govorim malo, razumem sve. And my heart is with the Serbian people, because my father came from Šumadija and my mother's parents.
Yes, but your heart was here even when it wasn't popular in the United States. You have always been supporting Serbian cause in the Republika Srpska. That's not news.
No, it's not news, but what I'm saying is I just want to let your listeners know and your viewers know that, you know, as an American of Serbian descent, what I would like to see here, and I think it's right for everybody, not just the Serbian people. I think it's right for the Bosniaks, and it's right for the Croatians. I would like to see the creation of a Bosnia of 3 entities, not 2, not, you know, the federation that exists today as it is, but to actually see the creation of 3, which was contemplated before the war started in the early 1990s in Lisbon. And, you know, I would address some of the territorial concerns and frankly, give the Serbian portion and make it larger and make it comparable to what it is now. But it ought to be 3 entities. How is it that, you know, people should not have the right to govern themselves? And I think it's in the best interest of the Serbian people. I think it's in the best interest of the Croatian people. And I think it's in the best interest of the Bosniaks if everybody has their own portion and their own place. That's what I'm working on to the best of my ability, try to see something like that happen in the long run.
Do you think that the United States would, at this point, the United States took a step back from interfering in in issues in Bosnia. They were more hands-on when it came to all that was happening in terms of dialogue and seeking the solutions for Bosnian question, for Bosnia and Herzegovina as a country. Now it's a little bit step back, but that's not something that will stay this way. The United States will probably be the mediator and the guarantee of the Dayton Peace Agreement on the field as they were before. But do you expect that the new energy that is coming from Washington at this point would bring new initiatives for new dialogue, for questions as three entities, for questions of new ideas how to shape Bosnia and Herzegovina in the future? Can we expect new new energy for the dialogue, new talks, and additional presence of the United States in Bosnia and Herzegovina?
Well, the good news is that the policies that were against the Serbian people from the previous administration, Biden and Obama, that's over. So that's been stopped. And the sanctions, the lifting of the sanctions on President Dodik and other Serbs here in Srpska is a strong indication that that's been stopped. It's also a strong indication and a preview of what's to come, because this has been a good thing for President Dodik and the Serbs here in Srpska. So I think what's happening in Washington, in fact, what I know is happening is they've stopped what was being done here. Now they're regrouping, they're reorganizing, we the Americans. And I think what you're going to see is a very new approach to the policies here. And I've made a New Year's resolution. I always do every year. Okay. I don't know if you do. Do the Serbs do that here in Srpska?
Of course.
New Year's resolution. You know what my New Year's resolution is? To do everything I can to convince President Trump to eliminate the High Representative and to fire Christian Schmidt. And I really believe that that's a New Year's resolution. It's not going to be one of those where you say you're on a diet and then 3 weeks later you're no longer on a diet. I think this one could very well happen.
And you are determined to work on that.
Yes, very much so. It's my New Year's resolution.
That's really good news, and it's not only, maybe it's a New Year's resolution for you, but for Bosnia and Herzegovina, it's like a decade resolution, so to say.
Right.
So
Right.
do you expect that to happen? And in what way do you think that this will develop? Is it just Christian Schmidt going back home, or the OHR transforming, or just like leaving the idea behind of the office of the High Representative and leaving people in Bosnia to talk themselves and try to agree on how the country should look like in the future?
Well, again, I think the biggest challenge is where I am. I know I can be helpful and have been helpful is to get to the right people and explain to them what's happening here and what's been happening here. And we have in President Trump someone who has shared the same experience as President Dodik and me, and that is being on the wrong end of the Christian Schmidts of the world who abuse their power and persecute you, and who make up non-crimes and turn them into fake crimes, and then abuse their power to do things that they have no legitimacy to do. So in the sense of Christian Schmidt, I don't know if you know the name Letitia James, but this is the Attorney General in the state of New York who prosecuted President Trump. And the way I've been trying to explain this issue in America to the people around President Trump, and eventually to him too, God willing, is that Christian Schmidt is to Srpska and to President Dodik what Letitia James has been to President Trump and the American people. And that is two people who've abused their power, misused their power, who injected themselves into the political process unfairly, and have persecuted leaders who are fighting for their people. And I think that's a message that's going to resonate with President Trump and be a very powerful message, because he knows what it's like to have been on the wrong end of weaponized prosecutors, and in your case, weaponized high representatives.
We're still talking sanctions. We're still talking very important issues that are of great importance to Serbs in this area. How do you see the extension of the deadline for oil imports for the Serbian industry. Can we say that this situation is improving for Serbia and it can be improved in 2026?
You talk about the NIS issue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The NIS issue offers a tremendous opportunity to develop better relationships with the United States. I think it's critical for that NIS issue to be resolved with American business active and involved in the new purchase. I think it creates a tremendous beginning of better relations, not just with regard to investment and business opportunities in Serbia and the Republic of Srpska, but it's a necessary way to open the door to create more opportunities to come here in this area, the Balkans, particularly in the Serbian areas. So no, I think the niche situation, as difficult as it is actually an opportunity that could be very good for develop better relationships between the United States and Serbia, the United States and the Republic of Srpska, and a lot more investment from America in the Republic of Srpska and in Serbia.
How do you assess the relations between the United States and Serbia within this year of President Trump's second administration?
You know, it's an amazing thing to me because I've had a chance now to come back here, you know, a few times past year, and now starting this year to be here at Srpska again. And what is remarkable to me is the Serbian people and how, in spite of everything, and in spite of the mistreatment that the Serbs have had from the United States government, how Serbs still love America and still see America as the place of hope, which still most of America does, and most of the world still sees. But the Serbs have this unique feeling for America. I know this from my own experience with my father, who, you know, was in World War II, was a prisoner of war from the German prisoner of war, and then a refugee, and came to America after World War II, and was such a strong Serb, pravi Srbin, pravoslavan, pravi Srbin, but he loved America. And what was so heartbreaking to the Serbian community in America and to me was in the 1990s when we, the United States, decided to choose sides with those who were against the United States in 2 world wars at the expense of the Serbian people who were on the side of the Americans in both world wars. It was a matter of a profound amazement to me. But there were so many lessons to be learned from that. And I think over time, we're making progress in the United States to not only learn from those lessons, but to actually do things as a result of the lessons learned. And that is, the Serbs in America, in the diaspora, have to be a lot more politically involved. They have to be more active. They need to be in touch with their elected representatives. They need to let their member of Congress know what the issues are here. Because what happened in the 1990s was that the Serbs were out-organized in domestic American politics by the other communities who had other interests, particularly in the Muslim community. And as a result of that, Bill Clinton and his policies were driven, I frankly think, more by American domestic policy than by any vision for what's right for the Balkans. And he was willing to sacrifice larger issues like the importance of the Christian faith in the Balkans for his short-term political goals, which included his wife, Hillary Clinton, running for the United States Senate in New York, where there's a strong Muslim lobby there. I hate to say it, but I really believe Bill Clinton's motivation to bomb Serbia and to get involved in Bosnia and to not be a fair arbiter in the peace process that led to the Dayton Agreement, I truly believe was driven more by his concern about electing his wife to the Senate as opposed to his responsibility as the President of the United States to do the right thing for the United States and for other parts of the world. And it's right for the United States to be strong supporters of other Christian countries and other Christian people like the Serbs.
But the ship is turning in a total other direction right now, and we all see it in Serbia and in Republika Srpska especially. Can the arrival of the U.S. ambassador to Belgrade be the turning point of improving the relations between Washington and Belgrade?
I wouldn't call that a turning point. I think it's at some point it's going to happen, and it's good to have an ambassador here, so long as it's the right one. Frankly, the previous ambassador, Christopher Hill, and some of the others that you've had here, Murphy, these other people, you'd be better off if there was no ambassador. So the important thing is which ambassador and what does that person, he or she, stand for. And if it's, you know, an ambassador who reflects President Trump's values, which likely will be, then that's going to be a good thing. But I wouldn't rely just on ambassadors. There's all kinds of ways to be able to do things, to get things done that are good for Srpska, even if there is no ambassador.
And finally, the issue, the question that draw a lot of attention throughout the world. How do you see? You mentioned the arrest of President Maduro. How do you see that? How do you think that the President Trump has demonstrated United States' resolve in confronting drug cartels in South America? Is this a declaration of war in terms of drugs and all the criminal that is crime that's happening there?
It is a war on drugs. The arrest of Maduro in Venezuela was not a military action. It was a law enforcement action. This was the arrest of a guy who's one of the biggest drug dealers in the Western Hemisphere. This is a subject I know a lot about, because I had the misfortune of spending some good that it was out for political things.
Yes.
With Obama and stuff that happened. I don't want to go into all of that. But I lived for 8 years with drug dealers from that part of the world. And I would hear them tell stories. I'd ask them questions about some of the dynamics regarding the political leadership in places like Mexico and in places like Venezuela. So this isn't a foreign policy issue as much as it is a national security issue in the United States regarding keeping public safety, keeping Americans safe from drugs. So what he did in Venezuela is really good from the standpoint of going after a drug dealer. But there's another piece of this which is really good for the Serbian people, and you know what that is? It's energy. Donald Trump is determined to make the United States #1 worldwide in energy dominance. No president has done what he has done, and that has created an office of energy dominance. And how does this impact Serbia and Srpska? Well, look at the NIS situation. Trump wants to do business with countries. His foreign policy is no longer like it was under the Democrats. It's a very different foreign policy that's really linked to business investment and developing relationships where the nations and countries can benefit mutually in creating economic ties and developing new strategic partnerships. Trump wants America to be energy dominant. I was at the White House for the Christmas party just a few weeks ago, and he spoke, and he spent most of the time in his speech talking about how after 1 year of his presidency, we in the United States produce more than twice the amount of oil and gas as Russia and Saudi Arabia combined. Trump is someone who wants to win all the time and run up the score. He's not satisfied with that. He wants to do a lot more. And so part of what happened in Venezuela is now the United States is in a position to be able to export that oil that was being sent to China. China is our big competitor. And in the Balkans, they have a foothold here. I think the NIS situation offers a great opportunity for an American company to get involved and begin the process of making America a competitive place in energy in the Balkans, because there's so many natural resources in this area that would be good for the United States. And if we develop that kind of relationship with the Serbian people in Serbia and in Srpska, all the rest of the stuff that's been happening to the Serbs will completely change, and life will be so much better for the Serbian people, and there will be a strong alliance between our two countries.
How much that can help the Balkan countries to actually make a turning point in terms of progress and to bring their economies to another level?
It'll improve the quality of life for the Serbian people all throughout the Balkans, in Srpska, in Serbia, in Montenegro, wherever the Serbs are in this area. Quality of life will go up because gas prices will go down. There'll be more economic opportunity. More businesses will develop. There'll be a lot more jobs. And I think the NIS situation is sort of like the turning point. You use that word, and I think you're right. It could be a turning point because it'll be sort of like the beginning of opening the door to new possibilities of American investment here. You know, you got to go back to America, and you have to tell these business people why Srpska and why Serbia are good places to invest. And, you know, they're going to want to see examples. Show me an example of how it's working. If this NIS deal ends up as an American deal, that would be a tremendous key to unlock a door of all kinds of opportunities so that people like me can go back to America and say, look, it's working in NIS. Why don't you invest some of your business in Srpska or in Serbia? It's really rudimentary. It's not that complicated. But you need to have some examples. It helps to have examples where you can show these people your investments are going to be safe and they'll be profitable because it's working with NIS.
Thank you so much for talking to Newsmax Balkans. Thank you for being here, and hope you have a great time during your visit.
Well, I'm having a great time, and thanks for having me. And you know, the Serbs are famous for their hospitality, right?
Okay.
And I've been I've had the good fortune to be the recipient of wonderful hospitality over the last several days on Blagojevića and on Christmas, and just the general warmth and love of the Serbian people. I feel it all the time, and it's so nice to be
We'll
here.
keep up being a good in this way, and we'll try to make ourselves a good partner also. So hopefully.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.